Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments onto most any platform you're watching on. I won't say all, but most. If you're watching live, and they will show up in our chat room, and we can talk with you directly. Today, we are going to have an interview with our guest, Sarah Heartsong. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. Hi, Reverend Don.
And how would you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Well, I am calling myself on the book Rev Sarah Heartsong, and that's me being facetious because I'm a little irreverent. So I'm an Rev. I'm also ordained and all that. And I'm a professional priestess. So I've been working at this for a long time. In the 90s, I had my epiphany and come to the goddess moment, if you will. Got my degree in religion and global studies for my bachelor's degree, open and out as a witch, and from a Lutheran university, and was, I think, the first witch to graduate with a degree in religion from a Lutheran university. And
That's
then,
pretty remarkable.
yeah. And then I moved on to back to New Mexico and got my master's degree in communication studies from NMSU. And I did my interview for my thesis at a pagan festival up here in the Pacific Northwest. And it was called Coming Out of the Broom Closet, the Communicative Act of Self-Disclosure as a Witch. And that's still housed in the NMSU library there. So right now I'm spinning multiple projects, and I would call myself a solitaire high priestess in community. I've always been that. I do my own thing, and I go in and out of groups, and I've watched the community for a really long time in various places. Mostly, though, like in Washington State and New Mexico, those two locations that I've lived in back and forth. Right now, I'm in Washington State. And so behind me, you see my land sanctuary, all of those trees. We have 13 acres of land at the bottom of the peninsula that we call Erosia. And our Erosia is a land sanctuary and we're creating a church camp, if you will, for pagans.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, and that's where I'm
It
writing
looks
from.
beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. 13 acres, and we have a beautiful maple tree who is a goddess blessing tree. And you can see she's in the drawing down the moon pose. And it would probably take about 7 people to put their arms around her. She's a big, big goddess tree. And
Beautiful.
yeah, we call her Ambrosia.
And we
Yeah.
want to say hello to Antonio in the chat room. How are you today, Antonio?
Hi, Antonio.
And talking about your sanctuary,
Yeah.
uh, could you tell us a little bit more about your organization?
Yes. So when I was putting together, oh wait, let me back up.
Okay.
I have found that there's a common vision amongst pagan people or people who are nature centered in their spiritual beliefs that I've seen over and over and over appear. People want to create places to retreat to, places where they can be outside and be safe in their rights, and know that they're not going to be interrupted, know that they're going to be fine being skyclad if that's what they want to do and their rights require. So this is a vision I've carried since the 90s that I wanted as well. And so when I was purchasing this land with my partner, one, in the purchase, we protected this beautiful tree that we didn't even know was there. And then we also, when I went to become a 501c3, realized that they actually asked, "Are you sure you're not an association?" And I was like, "Wait a second. That's right. That's what I'm making. I'm making a spiritual association." And that is a little different than my land sanctuary. So my land sanctuary is called Erosia. And so Erosia is a church camp, if you will, of the Tolis, which is the Tree of Life Interfaith Sanctuary. And this is an association of nature-centered spiritual people and groups who come together to support each other. And we're developing this. It is not something that I've seen very many spaces in nature-centered spiritual places. So it's a new thing we're trying to create and be stronger together and do
Hmm.
this thing better and help each other. And as soon as that group exemption is open for the from the IRS again, because they closed it and they're redoing their procedures, as soon as that comes open, we're hopping on and getting that group exemption. So in the meantime, we're helping with technical support, with space on the internet, space on our Zoom. If you needed to do a Zoom call and you're one of our member organizations, you can talk to me and I can help you set that up. There's a lot of support. I've also helped other people to explore their state's rules around organizations and helping them to write their bylaws and such. I am not a parliamentarian. However, amongst our association, we do have a professional parliamentarian who actually helped us with the Tollis bylaws, and I learned a whole lot from him in that process. So I'm willing to help other people. That's part of why we connect, to help
That's
each other.
wonderful. We were talking before we came on the air. And hello to Zane in the chat room. It's good to see you, Zane. Um, about certain types of personalities, and you were talking about how you have a facility for people who are contrarians. I thought maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Okay, I will. I will, because I'm a bit contrary myself. I can be known as a poker of people. Like I can get in there and poke a little bit and get people to instigate. And so I realize that there's a whole spiritual tradition around being contrary.
Mhm,
And sometimes we call them clowns. In Lakota, they call them Hayoka. And there's in Navajo tradition and all different kinds of native traditions, we find this appearing. It's usually another gender kind of space. And
mhm.
so to open up that to be able to be something that we can understand and we can work together with rather than having it be a breaking down thing is a simple identify yourself. We have back up a moment. We have a ethics for the Tolis. That's what we center under. Since we bring all different kinds of traditions forward, to join us, we can't be tradition for focused. We're
Mm,
ethics focused. So we have a code of ethics that we ask everybody to agree upon as they join, and that becomes what we center around. And in that ethics is a statement around clown and or Heyoka slash contrary paths that if they are expressing that and that's part of their tradition and who they are and they identify, then let us know so we
mm.
know what you're doing. And then we can adjust ourselves and our approach appropriately to your spiritual path.
Very cool. And we want to say hello to Bimby in the chat room. It's good to see
Hi,
you, Bimby.
Bimby. Oh, there's one thing too that's also connected in a sense to that ethics statement is what happens if somebody's not
Hmm.
ethical. So we also do have a code of behaviors. So if something were to happen and we were to have to talk to somebody about a situation we were considering unethical, we would want to explore it. There's a whole process around it that we've agreed is fair as a board. And so we approach it that way.
Very good. Um, we had previously talked about some of your adventures over the years. So, are there any adventure you'd like to stop and focus on for a moment in the community?
An adventure. Oh my.
Maybe something that you particularly learned from.
Hmm. Oh, there's
that
so
that
many
that you're
over the
willing to
years.
bring up.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that I have to think through these things too, because a few of them I was, like, told, "Shh, don't talk about it. You're not allowed
Yeah.
to talk about it," right? Like, it's part of a mysteries tradition,
Yeah.
which, I go, "Hmm, wait." And then there are certain stories that I actually if you would like for me to share a story, I would love
Mhm.
to share a story about how I found Beltane Southwest.
Wonderful.
Beltane Southwest is the Beltane that, I have been going to since the beginning of the 2000s. Yeah, and, it is a tradition that has been happening in the Albuquerque area for over 40 years now. And when I moved from the Pacific Northwest to back to New Mexico, I was born and raised in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and we moved back when my daughter was 3. And I had been at many Beltanes before that, and every year I danced at least one belt maypole, usually probably more like 3 because there were so many opportunities for me up in the Pacific Northwest. But in New Mexico, there wasn't much going on. So remember, different parts of the country have different experiences of nature-centered spirituality.
Mhm.
Huge. Okay, so in New Mexico, we didn't have a lot of big community. I didn't know where to go dance a maypole. So the weekend prior to Beltane, I decided to go to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Las Cruces. And they just so happened to be dancing a maypole. And I was told about this maypole, and I'm excited about this maypole. I'm like, okay, let's see what they do. And when I saw it, I was terrified. I really was afraid that somebody would die because they had a heavy metal pole that was on a hubcap, like a wheel. It was a
Mhm.
wheel, like and they put it on asphalt. And they had a topper that was a metal thing that they tied ribbons to, so and it went round and round and round, and they screwed it on the top, and they put this on asphalt, and I'm sitting there watching this thing going, "Oh my god, this is gonna fall on somebody's head and they're gonna die." Literally, I was
Yeah.
really afraid. And then I laughed my butt off when they couldn't get the topper on,
Uh-huh.
1, and I'm like, "Thanks, guys. That's very helpful." Nobody's gonna die today because 'cause they're not gonna get chances full on the asphalt.
But the
And so
non-dying is good.
and so but I'm being polite, I'm a visitor, I'm new, right,
Yeah.
watching. And, so go in and, I'm watching this thing, and they can't get it on top, and so they're like, "Okay, let's get the tallest guy in the congregation to stand, and we'll dance around him, he can just hold it up." And his name was Dick. It just made me laugh so hard. And so finally I stepped in and I'm like, "Why don't you put it in the crook of this tree over here and you can dance around the tree?" And so they did, and that was cute and that was fun and it was amusing, but it didn't fulfill that need inside of me to really dance that pole. So I prayed and I said, "Oh, great spirit, help me find this way. Help me find this way that I may find a beautiful pole to dance." And so I felt compelled to go up to Albuquerque the next weekend, which was actually Beltane. And it was also the Gathering of Nations powwow. And I had never been to the Gathering of Nations powwow, which was a gathering of nations. It's a huge rainbow kind of event with all different
Mm.
nations showing up in this beautiful bowl of at UNM. And I went in and I knew immediately it was not for me. It was not where I was supposed to be. I was not comfortable. I kept getting negative thoughts and negative things giving to me. And I knew, no, this is not my path. This is not my journey this time. So I
Mhm.
need to continue looking. So I felt compelled to find myself a hotel, even though I
Mhm.
was told, "Oh, you'll never find a hotel because it's Gathering of Nations powwow and every hotel room is booked." No, my guides guided me to the place on Central Avenue where I found a beautiful little tiny hotel room. It was right in my price range and it was great. And as I went in to do my little ritual myself, I looked out and I saw a Starbucks right out front. And I thought, huh, there's a Starbucks there. I'll go there in the morning and I'll get myself some coffee. Right? I'm still looking for my Beltane. I get up in the morning, I do as I said, I go and get my coffee, and I sit down and I look up, and directly across from me is a guy, and he has a giant pentacle on. I said, I'll bet you he knows where there's a Beltane. Mhm. And I said, "Hey, blessed be." And he looked up and he's like, "Ah, blessed be. Merry meet." And I say, "Yes, merry meet. Hey, I happen to be on a journey. Might you, by any chance, know where a Beltane is that I could dance a maypole?" And he said, "Yeah, in fact, there's one happening right now, and it's up in these mountains. And, it's the biggest pole I've ever seen." And I was like, "Really? I would love to go." He said, "Well, unfortunately, it's sold out. But I so happen to have an extra ticket. It's at my house, which is a block away. Would you like it? I'll go get it for you." "Okay, I would
Mhm,
love to. Yes, I would love to go to this Beltane. Thank you very much." And I sat there and he brought me my ticket and I went and I got some things that I could quickly camp out if I needed to
mhm.
because it was a camping event and I so was not prepared. So I found myself up there, was let in. It was I witnessed the biggest pole I have ever seen in my life.
Mhm.
It's the size of a telephone pole, carved
Okay.
in the shape of a penis. Giant, with, like, 300 people there to dance it. I had never danced such a huge pole in my life, and it was
Yeah.
wonderful. It was fantastic. I loved it, every moment of it was wonderful. Met this beautiful community, and then I started going to this Beltane over the years. So I saw it through some tricky times. Saw it through some wonderfully, euphoric times, and I just love this community. And this is really the base of my book. This ritual became this beautiful little book that I've written now, called Beltane Blessings and the Wisdom of Rhiannon, and it is targeting the preteen audience. And once I had that preteen audience dialed in, bam, then my book started to come out. I've been working on this series of the Wheel of the Year for a long time.
Mhm.
And it just wasn't right. It wasn't right. It wasn't right. So now this year it's being, well, the next couple years it's being born. So when I
Wonderful.
started, it started out with this little story about these kids who go to Beltane and their little relationships that develop as a result. And now we're going to follow them through their wheel of the year and their relationship change through the year. So we'll see how things progress with our little pastafarians.
Yes.
Looks like we've got other people joining us.
Yes, we want to say hello to Rev Cosmic in, the chat room. Hello, Cosmic. It's good to see you.
Oh,
Would you, like to talk a little bit more about the book and both how it's oriented toward a young audience, but also toward their parents?
absolutely. Yes. No, Beltane is tricky because Beltane brings up all kinds of relationship stuff. And we're talking about sexiness too. The spring and all the flowers are putting out their pollen, and the animals are getting warm and fuzzy with one another, and so are humans. So, this is like the time that we have built into our religion to talk about sexuality and to have it be a normal conversation and also understanding that it's sacred.
Mhm,
So, this is a little book that has a story to bring in the kids that is non-binary
mhm.
and also is a reader form so that they knew there's a glossary with words that they're learning vocabulary-wise. And then there's also a section for parents for helping them to navigate these challenging conversations. And at the beginning of this whole interview, I told you that I have a master's degree in communication studies. I've also been working with people with all different skill abilities, including some that have very little skill abilities or
Mhm.
ability to even talk for themselves for a really long time as well. So I've been in long-term care and being a case manager and helping people and teams negotiate sexuality with people who have intellectual diversity. So this is also one of my specialties, is having these conversations that are challenging, that may or may not be things that you're comfortable with or have learned as a child, because many of us never got these conversations as a kid.
Mhm.
This is our first time, and we wanna do it right with ours, and I've been there,
Yes.
done that. I have a kid who's now, oh gosh, how old is she? Oh, she's 25, I think, 98. 25, I think she's 25, turning 26. Ah! It's going so fast. Yeah.
It does that.
So I give resources. I also have a special little section there about identity. And as I talk to people, more and more people are like, hey, I need that. Like, guess what? We all have a preteen inside of us that didn't get what they needed. I should say most of us didn't get what needed
Most,
when we were,
yes.
to say all is kind of way big. But in this society, it's very rare to find somebody who got their identity completely and 100% lifted up as it's fine, whatever you choose, and giving them the teachings around sexuality as sacred in a timely way that wasn't leading them to an identity, that was more, here are some definitions. Let's explore what's right for you.
That's a wonderful resource. Um, and if anyone is interested in this book, you can find it at CorellianPublishing.com. You can also find it at Amazon. And
Absolutely.
it's a wonderful book. We highly recommend it.
Yes, yes, and you're working with me on the art when that's gonna
Yes.
come out. I'm so excited about that too. And now comes me working on the next one. The next one is actually, I'm gonna skip over summer solstice just because timing-wise and getting
Mm.
publishing out, and we're moving to Lunasa, so we'll be doing those holidays this time, and then the equinoxes and solstices next year. That's the plan anyway. We'll see.
So it's going to be the full wheel of the year when it's finished,
Yes,
and it's something that parents can work with their children on. And
absolutely.
as you were saying, it has resources
The book.
for both, but even just for an adult, it's still useful for most
Absolutely.
of us.
And it's called Beltane Blessings and the Wisdom of Rhiannon
Yes,
by Sarah Heartsong. Me.
yes. And let me just type that in for
Okay. And it's my Wheel of the Year series for preteens. When that came into focus, I realized, wow, I don't think we've got very many books going on for this particular age group. And this is such a challenging topic. So
well, it is, yes, but
I
important.
really hope that I have been able to give good samples of resources for parents and for kids.
Mhm.
And I created the book also in two formats, publishing wise. So there's one that's bound with a regular paperback binding, and then there's another that's spiral bound. The reason why I did that is to give more options so that parents can actually take apart the book if they want to and just give
Mhm.
part of it to the kid. You know your kid better than anybody else. You should anyway, hopefully.
Well, hopefully.
And and so, you might know better if they maybe just need a small bit, like the glossary and the one little story, and then later you can also put together the books in different ways if you wanted to or not.
Mhm.
So it was just more flexibility. And plus, I kind of like spiral bound myself because then I can flip it over to the back.
Yeah,
And at the end of my book, I give a ritual. So you can actually do this ritual, and I give you words and all the things, all the resources, and all of the wisdom that I've gained over this, and watching it in different settings. So there's
that's
that.
wonderful. And this will be the format for the entire series.
Yes. So there'll be a little story of these kids, and it'll continue around the wheel. And then there's a retelling of a myth that usually is around the Celtic, North European traditions, as that's mostly where I glean my source from. And then there's a section for parents and for going deeper with resources like YouTube's, websites, books, different things like that. And then there's a ritual. So if you wanted to do it yourself, then here you go. Here's one, and I tell you how to tailor it to your particular setting and background.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that one of the things our community most needs now are resources for families and children.
Hmm.
And although there are more people working on it than previously, it isn't enough yet. So I think this is a wonderful project.
And,
Uh,
it's a really challenging time of life. I have to say, like, in raising my daughter, this preteen time,
mhm.
ooh, it's challenging, and they can be so nasty and naughty at that time.
Yes, they can. Um, well, I was raised in a Karelian family, and I can tell you there was nothing available um, specifically for non-Christian children at that
Mhm,
time, for pagan children. There were things out of the wider community that had that could be relevant, but usually only so much so. Um, I remember in particular a book of Greek mythology that was aimed at children that was very, very interesting, but really didn't have much to do with what we did. But it was
mhm.
interesting. And
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think I recall, back in that day,
yeah,
it would be mythology. You read those stories of the
hmm,
people from before and the folklores and the,
yeah,
fairy tales and those
hmm,
kinds of things, and, get from what we can from that. And
yeah,
now we're in a very different time when
hmm,
communication is so quick and so fierce,
yeah,
and people can dox each other online, and you can get so, like, we never had communication like this ever before in
no,
human existence. Never.
hmm.
So we're all struggling with this culture thing and how to how to even exist with communication the way that it is now. We were talking about Mercury retrograde.
Yes, we were.
Yes, I dance backwards with Mercury too, sometimes, and it's now one of those times, but I've practiced.
Hmm.
And
No, communication now is almost like electronic telepathy. I mean, it can be instant. Too
absolutely.
instant for people who don't stop and think about what they're going to say.
No, and our
Uh,
societies haven't caught up. They have not. A society takes a lot longer to develop
mm. Well,
than
not
in
only that, but I think
Mhm,
that in the 60s and 70s, when letter writing became less common and various other things were happening, and especially in the 80s, there was almost a conscious effort to forget how to regulate your communication. Because people used to think about how to say things in writing because they knew they weren't going to have the tone of their voice.
mhm.
Um, and we're having to relearn it because we chose not to remember it.
That's an interesting point. I think there's something to that, definitely. Mhm. It's very interesting. And now, going back to the book, how do you communicate your identity? So
Hmm.
that's a huge deal. And a lot of people, okay, this is being defined right now, how to
Yeah.
communicate your identity. What are these concepts? What is non-binary? I had to explain that to
Hmm.
somebody I didn't think I should have to explain to, but I did. And so here it is, right? Like, you
Hmm.
can't assume that people understand what you're saying when you say it,
Yeah.
because you think that they are from a culture that will know. Even more so, we have to double
Hmm.
check, triple,
This is true.
quadruple check, because we can assume a lot of things that aren't right and true.
Hmm.
So this little resource about identity, in this little book that I put out, is super helpful even to people at my age,
Hmm.
which is in my 50s, because we didn't have these identifiers. And the first story in this little book is about a non-binary experience of love in a very simple, very sweet form. And it's in contrary to all of these narratives I see all over the media, especially in preteens or teen media,
Mhm.
about everything has to be serial monogamy. So you're only with one person at a time, ever, and if you start to like somebody, you have to immediately cut off with the other person because you have a new person that you're interested in. That the
Mm.
old person now has to no longer be a friend, and you have to have a big breakup, and it has to be really dramatic and intense. Doesn't have to be like that, guys.
No.
Tired of that story. I want a new story. One that
Yes,
we
indeed.
can one that we can step out of that binary and accept other expressions of love.
Yes, indeed. We want to say hello to Eve in the chat room.
Hi, Eve.
And with that, we've come to the end of our half hour. Sarah, thank you for joining us.
What? It went so quick.
It did. We'll have to have you back again
I
and
would love
continue the
to.
conversation.
Absolutely, especially as I start to spin these books out even
Yes,
more.
indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're going to close with a prayer as we always do. And I will see everyone tomorrow when we'll be talking about chakras and meridians and the energy centers of the body. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all the things that you do for us in our lives, and we ask you to help us to find the things that we want and need in life, even as you helped Sarah to find her maypole. Place in front of us the things that we need, the resources that we require, and help us to recognize them when they come. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love and with respect, and knowing you are always with us. Still from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And may you be blessed now and always, and we will see you tomorrow.